All Hi, is everyone joined? Yes. All right. Continue, discussing the scripting part, which is the most of the development and all scripting we're not discussing in that area. So if we discuss on scripting, then we'll go back to the service email, inbound scripts, integrations, etc. So like any language, there is some the programming aspect of the implementation where we manage configurations by program, right? But any other programming language is not a complete real program like a Java or a GTE based APIs or not a .NET based APIs. It's just a simple scripting you can manipulate, change the values. We have some basic level of scripting where we can glide, recall, and then write some queries to retrieve the program instead of using the UI screen. So the configuring, customizing UI screens, as in by being a developer, you will enhance the current functionality by doing some scripting in the background. In addition, enhancing the current functionality, it may be a custom development. You may also require to develop application using the custom development altogether, a new app in ServiceNow. Design a code, table, design structure, design a form, then you run scripting to manipulate and manage it, and so provide you with the basic functionality that you have seen that in the training schedule. The thing is that's the custom app. You pull everything, all add, delete, operations are readily available. In addition to that, you can also add some more scripting on the top. So we about the scripting, the client-side scripting versus the server-side scripting. What client-side scripting and what is server-side scripting? So before that, you need to get a little idea about what is client-side, right? Say for this is the user itself, uses the interface. This is the okay. You have the your application map and right. This is app. The is now backend mode, right? And this is an internet, and then we have the ServiceNow database having all the tables like incident, change from CMDB. To that, you also have your custom table, whatever you created, training schedule table, everything. User wanted to click on a list view or click on that's a filter to training and click on the training link. The call goes, the request will be sent to the back. This is a you. It displays behind the screen. What happens is if you make a request to the backend, there will be some middleware components, business objects. They will, and then they will query the database. They will return the result object, and they will return XML file back as a response object. So the option, this is a response. Let's pretend that is RESP. The response back, and the browser looks at the XML file. It displays the list view. Then the user clicks on one of the record to open up in a form view. Then the request goes back to the server side, and by a business component process, make database query, get response of the specific form view, sends the XML file back as XML response to the end, and browser reads the the XML file interprets and displays the form view. And this will be multiple views can be displayed. Not only view. So form view has a HTML components in the left and right. And you will be using the new form view and then in the response object. So it's called a request and response, and whole process, if you divide this internet into two, the whole everything, the service now, everything is called the server side. This is called server side, where this is hosted. Everything client is who was requesting the changes in it. So this client. Okay, transactions. And the client basically requests something into the server side, and the process it, and then it will send it back to the as a response object, and it displays. So it's a client and server technology. Any technology is a client and server. So that the use to exchange the data over the internet is HTTP. HTTPS. So now is a very secure cloud-based app. So it is all HTTPS. Unlike HTTP, nowadays most of the applications are HTTPS. So hypertextual protocol will be used to exchange the data server and the client. Okay. When the server sends a response, a big process will be initiated. If you work in Java.NET, you will know that whenever thing is submitted, either HTTP request is called actually the HTTP request. Response HTTP response, because it is transmitted the data HTTP protocol. Maybe secure or unsecure, it doesn't matter. But it is processed by a HTTP request across the server line. So every time that they are clicking on the list view, making an expensive call to the server side. So actually it goes to the action servlet. In reality, sitting is a traffic light. It will be here. And if the action servlet will be here, it receives request. First, it will interpret the request and verify what kind of request it is. Then realize, oh, this is for the specific training dual business component. Then there will be many business components in the server. 1,000 components. A component takes care of one table. Okay, objects. Then go ahead and then assign that to this business object. Then the servlet realizes that is coming about training schedule.do show to this specific app. And this will take a help from multiple classes, including the transfer objects, serial eligible objects, to verify to push the data from this request that you are sending to objects, and then every object. And finally, it sends this information to a daya framework. Daya, again, this is about nothing to do with ServiceNow. It's about Java objects. So this framework is a framework for the data. This framework has something, and it will receive the request. It will convert into the SQL query. So there is a lot of things happen. You going here and then go to the and click training schedule. A simple click. You think I'm not doing anything. I'm just clicking, and it is displaying a list view. What you know is it is doing a lot of things in the background. There is a load balancer. There is a multiple servers, application server, web server, host server, XML files, configuration files. Many things run, and one will execute the query in the database and get response to display the scores. Click on it, you know that there is many things happen. And then on the specific this class ID, then you display the form, right? And you will make many calls in the background. In the background, and you will be displayed. So what I was trying to tell you is, there is a lot of things happen in the middle, and so the client is very expensive. When a client makes a post, HTTP post, a data to the server, it takes a lot of time, lot of network time, lot of resources time, infrastructure time, function time, heavy. depending on internet speed, the response will be much faster. Okay, so everyone is clicking on something, he clicks an update button, it does many things in the background. So the client, whenever it is posting is submitting the request. Either you click new, any button or any action that you perform on a browser, click the action, it goes to the server, it does many things and comes back. An update action, it does many things. Everything that you click on this page makes a massive action with the server. So use a number of clicks from the number necessary posts. Or let's say that you are trying to log into the ServiceNow. You have a wrong password. What happens? It goes all the way to the server. Server realizes that your password is wrong. It comes back. Here, user ID and password. It makes sense. What if you don't enter anything at all and you submit? So user ID and the password. ID. Then these two are the two text boxes: user ID and password. You are trying to log in any web page. You enter some value. Then you made it. It go to the server. Server realizes that you gave a wrong password, a wrong user ID. It brings back. Just enter an empty value. Your user ID is empty, pass empty. You did not put anything. You submitted. Right? You submit this record. It goes to the server. It does many things, and finally realizes that your values are empty. Then it will send back and say user ID and password is mandatory. So if the call is made, and next resource time is being used, and you infrastructure data, server time, server attention, web server attention, application server, many things happened just because user is wrong value. You mistake that is absolutely fine. If you wantedly send a blank user password, it's an expensive time for the server. So there is running to millions of requests across the globe, and you wanted to spend a time on something which is totally invalid. Okay, creating the client data is most important thing in a technology. So the server, the client side sub data, server side validates the data, processes data, and responds back. Similarly, client is submitting invalid data. You enter a number, you enter a text there. This is to send this data to the server. Use the server experiment and then come back and say you enter text. In we validate at the client side itself, not validate in the server side. So if anyone have user ID and password, did not enter any value and click submit, we don't want to submit it. Stop it there itself and say, hey, you did not enter any value. You made wrong password, which my server will tell you, but you cannot submit your form without a password in it. My server resource time, just you did not send anything. For us to authenticate you or authorize you, we need to have a user ID and password to be entered, which you don't. So it doesn't make any sense for us to submit it. So it's called a client-side validations. So the validations and the server-side validations are really very important. So the clients always restrict annulation of the form without having a right data in it. And the server validations still continue to add more validations, but it doesn't matter. When the user submit, he may have submitted something, either a wrong value or right value, but they have submitted it. So validate the data upfront before it submits, because it's very expensive to make a server call. It's very expensive to use the network time, and internet and server time. We don't want to have that unnecessary things, so we got it. So there will be some client-side validations. User submissions will be validated, sized before they submit, and the server-side validations where the server, before inserted to the database, before updated to the database, before do any database operations, it will validate again. Okay. For example, a user was asked to enter only a number in it, but a text, and there is no validation is submitted. Then the certain database, before it goes to the DAO framework in this area and submit it, I just wanted to validate using some another the another, oh, data is invalid. So there will be a server-side validations, there will be a client-side validations. Client-side validations will be taken care of by client-side scripts, and all server-side validations will be taken care of by server-side scripts. Okay, that's what we're going to learn today. In every language, there will be a client-side validations or server-side validations. Here, the client-side validations will be taken care by JavaScript. In Java, we use the web technologies like in JSP and solids. We use set validations using JavaScript. In .NET, we use the client-side validations including JavaScript or VB script, Visual Basic Script. So similar many other scripting, PHP and any other scripting which validate the client side. So only focus on JavaScript because that is one of the supported technology for the ServiceNow client and server side script. Now scripts are to extend your instance beyond the standard configuration. Standard configuration is what ServiceNow provide you out of the box. In addition to that, you can automate the process and functionality, integrate ServiceNow with no enhanced application, and many more we can do it. We use the scripts only, including validating, including mandatory or non-mandatory. Most of the things we use, the client and server-side scripts using the JavaScript. So methods that you can use in scripts to define the functionality. API, ServiceNow publishes the API. I showed a wiki with the glide system, glide record, glide time. Many of those are all the classes. They have functions they will show you. So the API is nothing but a predefined set of objects. It's a function is been ServiceNow created and give it to you. You break your head to write a program. So the programming language, JavaScript, it's a configuration language. You just figure the ServiceNow out of the box. So I don't want you to be a programmers to develop a lot of big programs for ServiceNow. They want to focus on design developing simple applications, small applications where they can go ahead and verify something and then you add some script around it. Okay? So they have defined you many API classes which you can see it in wiki. There's your ready-made API classes and ask you to use it. Like your .log, GS is a glide system, glide record. Those are all predefined classes with methods. You can use them in your scripting instead of you pay attention on design new class for reason of some. They don't want you to be a programmer. They want you to use an existing classes to fix something. Okay. To that, ServiceNow also provides a powerful feature called jelly scripting. So this is like JSTL in Java server, the transformation language, where JSTL will be used to pass incoming XML object to display in a client side. Similarly, use the jelly scripting. ServiceNow adopts the jelly, where it is nothing but a powerful programming language for the UI technologies. Like JP, one of the languages. That's a programming language, right? But hardly work on jelly. You never have to use jelly scripting. It's very rare. In many places, ServiceNow one way, maybe one guy will be work jelly, not even a company. Across in my clients, we never use jelly in last 6 years. Jelly a lot. Background script to display the XML file to be in the front. The jelly scripting a lot. We hardly do it. It gives you a feature where you can customize and design your own programming language. Use jelly scripting. Okay, so that we using jelly, you can write if conditions, you can write if conditions, while loops, you write some validations, many things. More jelly script used in the ServiceNow web using also you can do web design. So that is content management portal. The management specification help you to design web portals in ServiceNow. You can web design and host a website in ServiceNow. That's a different concept. Now ServiceNow developer is a web designer. Every web designer is a ServiceNow developer. So who's no admin developer, they don't do the web design. Who do the web design in ServiceNow, they don't do the admin and developer. It's different, all a different category. category. Okay, so jelly scripting is used in ServiceNow CMS portals to design websites. They use the jelly scripting functionality using with or without a script. Sometimes we don't have to write any script. Customers out of the box. Those relations. Customers are nothing but we use a script, a small scripting languages to design or develop a small piece of area. Okay. So there, I told you, right? Everything is the same. They may have a different name, but their look and feel, their coding style, their validations, the scripting style, everything is same across instances. Those side script, those is server side script, those is the workflow scripts in the service catalog. We will do these scripts. They are different by nature where they are being used, but they have a name, they have a scripting area, there is a table, there is a small command, there is a glide record. Every area is same. So if you understand one area, every other area it's same. Names are different. Okay. So we talked about the client-side scripting. This is client-side scripting, right? This one, and this is the server-side scripting. That's now server-side scripting. The client-side scripting is different by nature. Both are having the same structure, same style, same coding, same taxes, same way of implementing. But you understand at one place, so everywhere it is. So either it is a client script or a business rule is nothing but server-side script. Client script or a server-side script or a workflow activity in its catalog. The scripts are the same. The area, the look and feel, everything is same. So far you have seen the background script, very small. Similarly, we can have the scripts areas which we will discuss now. Very small programming, lines of program, so that it retrieves by script. Okay, between a client and a server-side scripting. We can before. Yeah, so the client side is nothing but the browser side. You validate it. You have to send the invalid date, invalid user ID, invalid password. You stop the expensive way of submitting a wrong value as much as possible. It's not 100% possible to stop submit invalid values. He may use a program. He uses a human brain, much more program. So he tweak to send some invalid data to the server. You try your best to incoming client data to maximum best. Then it goes to the server side. The server will have another set of validations. Okay. Web browser is the client, and it's the only software that installs the customer side. So in web browser is the only software that you have installed. Either it is for a Firefox or a IE. Right? There isn't anything from ServiceNow, and we're not owned by ServiceNow. So inside, there is a web browser is the client, and we validate the web browser actions. Web browser submitting a page, web browser clicking on something, web browser adding a wrong data to it. We'll try to validate. It's not we will validate. When we validate to our maximum best, we will try to strict not to send the invalid data to the server. And the server, application server and database are located in the data center. This is the database. This is the database, and these are the application servers, right? Server. So these are located in the back end. We call it as a back end or a front end. So this is called the front end, the client side. Front end. Front, that is what you see it. And this is what you see it. This is back. So what happened? It will be gone to the back, and in the end we validate it not to send invalid values using climb scripts. So those is where you control and communicate the instance, including the communication with the server and database. This is where you can control. You can stop user not to submit this. You can ask user to send some value in it. You can ask user to don't submit it, don't delete it. You can ask user not to update. You can do anything on the client side because you have full control. If user, you can do anything on the browser not to submit it. But there isn't anything that you would do. It goes to the ServiceNow validate, and either it insert the database, insert into the, or it just send saying that no invalid. So it does by its own. Okay. So the client scripts. Important what you learn in client scripts and ServiceNow is script UI policies, UI scripts, and validation scripts. Okay. For the right click, right. So basically, what you learn in whole ServiceNow anywhere is configuring this. This is the only area that developers do. Anyone who works on as an admin. This is it. So we'll have the UI policies, some client script UI policies. If you look at the configurations, like client scripts, UI policies, these are all the configurations. Some of them is client side, some of them server side. Table security rule is the server side. Business in the back end. Security, everything in the table level is back. Client UI side at the client. UI policy is the client side. That your UI, anything that is UI, user interface, is your policy on the user interface not to submit, add this value, mandatory, not mandatory, is you in the client side. Policy is the data that you don't want client to enter. The invalid data that you give him an option of not to have. It is a server side again. You're submitting this button. The this clicking button is a UI action. It will you pays. Right? No dictionary is a table structure backend. Notifications are sent email notifications in the backend. Everything is backend except things the front end is another client scripts and UI policies. So the UI policies, UI scripts or validation scripts, these four are nothing but the client side programming scripts, which we can write small program to data entry, control the validating the data. Every at the client side we will do this. And this access controls, business rules, script action, transform maps. You have seen that import set transform maps, right? Transform scripts meant to be server side. Everything is server side except UI policy, UI policies, client validation scripts. You will use them to validate. Everything is in the background. Okay. So there is syntax editor is a plugin. In service new instances comes with this syntax plugin. Otherwise, you go to the plugins and then enable them. But most instances that you are using, that syntax editor is auto enabled. So check whether syntax editor is there. It is all active. So this is the syntax editor is nothing but helping ServiceNow to validate. You writing a programming language, you look at the word. What is this? Whatever are called editor. This command, the command has an editor where you can change the font to a strike complete. I can make it as an underline. See, it's underlined. So this is called editor. Similarly, in ServiceNow scripting areas, in the background script you have seen there is an area but there is no editor. But in this now they gave you an editing feature where you can use the editors to syntax. Okay. One second. So that's editors, right? Where you can click on edit something. This is all editor. Similarly, ServiceNow also gives a syntax editor which is a script area to be controlled, like it aligns, it validates, it pre-compiles, it verifies whether it that you have typed is wrong or right. Everything it will tell you. That is helpful editor. So in previous versions we need to enable the plugin, but newer versions it is coming by default. Okay. So this editor is enabled. See, this is a window, say your background script window, but they have an editor like this, same as editor, where you can validate. You can, if you click this, it allows lines, code lines. If you do this, it will it will ask you about validations. It will comment, it will amend, it will validate your syntax, whether writing right code or wrong code. It will some code searching up and errors, in tab indentations. You open this editor outside and help. ServiceNow help. And these all the fields, it will help you about what are all the information, like shortcuts. So this is syntax editor using which you can type some code in it. They'll help you as much as possible. In addition to basic JavaScript skills, they'll give you all available objects, all available editors, all available comment lines, everything. All you have to write a few lines, few conditions, or few conditions. Okay, so that is there. Client scripting. Client scripting and the UI policies. There are two types of policies. Let's discuss about what is UI policy. And then open the training schedule. Right? Open your form. Now, let's click new. Right? Right now, whenever you have added this specific, like the training schedule. Right? Problem is whenever you have the specific, there is no validation in it. What comes in, you just do this one, then remove this one. It has to be none, right? If this is, you wanted to enter some class ID active or not active and some data in it, and anyone just submits the data like this, it's submit. See, a record has been created without any value in it. So then you will see the empty record again. So what problem here? The problem is there is no validation. There is mandatory. There is no mandatory. There isn't anything that it. Okay, so have any mandatory fields in it? You can send a blank data. So go back to discussion. In Ryan said we wanted to restrict the user not to submit. We want the please stop submitting blank values. Make up some mandatory values. Make mandatory. By making this class ID as a mandatory, user can submit as a mandatory. So two ways of making mandatory. One view, you can right click on it, go to configure dictionary and make mandatory. Every time user uses it, it's mandatory. Being admin, you can do that. No one else can do that. You can impersonate and check. So you update it, right? And this new record, not save it. I think dictionary, make it active, make mandatory, and okay. So you see the red symbol here. Now, if a user wanted to submit a blank record, it says no following is a mandatory. So you defined as a mandatory, making client to submit some value in it. You're for him. But we discussed about this in the past. If you get a database level mandatory, the problem is that is mandatory for everything else, including the UI form, including the integrations, including the services. For everyone, it's a mandatory. And there be a requirement that says that services may not need to fill the class IDs. Manage this by form require class ID. So in that case, you can't make a database mandatory. Okay, then everything become mandatory for all the integrations. So to do that, so mostly we don't do field level mandatory conditions until we decide to have a field to be mandatory for the lifetime for any integrations. That is the time you make mandatory in the back end. We don't want to make mandatory at the dictionary level. If you don't want to make mandatory at dictionary level, how do you make the mandatory at the form level? Different integrations, right? That is where UI policies help. UI and the script, what difference mainly? Most they both work similar. UI policy will apply your company policies on the interface. It will be mandatory. It will make the fields as non-mandatory. It will make fields as read-only. It will make it as non-mandatory at time of loading. When you submitting this update the record, it will say a script that will validate the data that user is entering. Okay, let's deal with the UI policies today. So UI is to restrict the user not to enter or not to skip a field. So at the time of loading the form, I want to make some fields as mandatory. How do that? So you in the form, you click on it, and then you configure UI policies, right? We have a table, seen the form design, we have seen the form layout, we have related, all is everything, seen. This rule is client script. Now let's see about UI policies. If you open UI policies, there is defined on this training schedule class. Schedule class, no policy defined by anyone. Now I'm defining for the first time a new policy I'm adding. Okay, I give it a name, a short description is my name. I'll tell them this is policy, which is a global for everything on this table level global policy scope. And I give a name, make field. So form is loading. I wanted to make the sum is to be mandatory for sure. I execute this script and make the mandatory when I open it. Okay, and to apply, it says that okay, what is your mandatory? This is my business policy. I wanted to make some fields as mandatory when the form is loaded, not database dictionary, but at the load time, at the client side, at the side only, so that integration has an impact on it. So that I'm making an add new and say, okay, do you want me to apply the policy? ServiceNow is asking me, you want me to apply the new policy that you're writing? I say, my policy, any conditions? I want to add any conditions? Then it's okay, go. When do you want me to run the policy on load? When form is loading? Is it on the table? Add the policy. Right? If false, okay, I'll explain this. And then I save this record. Submit. It goes back to view. I don't want to go back, so I want to stay here. So save. So it's created. But it is that the policy can be applied. There's a condition on it, so it will be applied all the time the page loads. Conditions of the policy. Actions. Okay, your UI policy actions. Created a policy by name make mandatory. You run this policy when the form is getting loaded. You order, you give a name to it. Fine. What you do when I load, writing the new UI policy actions, a related record. A record that says, okay, define a new policy action. Now, I'm creating new policy action, and I'm going to select. This is the UI policy name. Visible only my options. Table equal to the training schedule tab. Field, which field you want to apply the policy? The field to apply the policy is class ID. Select it. What do you want me to do the policy ID? I'm telling make the man as true. True. Alone, just leave it. Don't worry about it. Read. You get as true. Then what you know what happens? The your ID becomes read only. Right? Add a policy. Mandatory should be true on this class field. Submit it. Any action is created. Okay. Now you're done with it. No, I want to add some more mandatory fields. Okay. What is next mandatory? Click new. Field that you wanted to apply the policy. On this field, like course title, mandatory. Okay. What you can number of actions on any number of fields. Add one more policy action, and we go and select the field description mandatory. Now this is not database mandatory things. These are all the mandatory at the form level on the load. So now I created and I'm updating the UI policy. A new UI policy created with the condition true, reverse it false, and then okay. Now I go ahead and then training schedule. I'm clicking on the training schedule. Now I click empty thing. I will click this. I know you see that by when I mouse over class ID training type, this class is not a mandatory. There is no star next to it. If I click it, when it is being, it added something mandatory, mandatory, course mandatory. Some use there it is showing blue. Okay. I wanted to try to submit it, validating it. I'm saying that the mandatory fields are not filled in: description, course title, class ID. So do you that there is an automated thing, right? You did not write any code. You did not write that alert box. You did not write that alert condition. Nothing. You just only defined a UF policy where you mentioned some fields which are not mandatory by database is required to be mandatory at the law form level. So that you see a change when the pay attention, look at it, when the form is loaded, that is when it will become mandatory by database structure. So you this when the form is loading, all of a sudden start to it, because this is ran, you had a new policy, it ran, and then it displayed the values in it. Now you update it, it doesn't update at all, because it says you will not update it, you must have in it. Now put a class ID of 600 and then clear test course title, and then write some short description, because I'm the only few and update it updates. But I am validating my user cannot submit for without having some values to be there. And another important that you heard that when the user has writing code, your mail is mandatory. Say for example, sometimes the is true, then wanted to make start date and end date as mandatory. Okay. And just explaining another case. This is not a right case discussion, but for our, I just wanted to show you something. It's fine. These are fine. You can value, it changes the color. If some value, it changes the color, good. But you also may requirements and that material supplied is then wanted to show the material information, the material name, right? For example, let's add one more field. Configure. Leave this space. We're not committing anything. And called material string characters. Save it. I didn't add it. Configuration. Material information is a text box of string field. A field has been added. Now move this field under the material box. Material save. Okay, field into our our structure where material information is been by default. It is not a mandatory. By default, it is shown. Okay, your policy. I just wanted to make some space. I don't want the material supplied and material information to be displayed. I want to display this information only when the specific, the material supplied checkbox is checked. Display this material information, then it's mandatory. If I wanted to hide it, and as not mandatory. Okay, go ahead and add one more configuration and go to the policies. Can add. So your policy is show, display not display, read only, mandatory. These are all the form level at the load time. So when getting read, I'm adding some validations that how form fields can be a read only or mandatory or visible or hide. But the script is when you submit it, I wanted to validate, which I'll discuss later. Now just pay attention to your policy. Now this policy is making mandatory fields. To add a new policy that is about if the checkbox is checked, show the text box information. If the checkbox is unchecked, don't show the box at all. Okay. Adding policy so that you understand what it is. Manage material info. Okay. Now this is where I'm using when to apply. In my previous policy, it's about only mandatory things. There isn't anything. But here I need to add a condition. when this ready, be ready when a material is checked. If checked, don't show anything. Okay, write anything. The material supplied is true. Then I need an action. So first this. So add condition. I said a condition. I'm defining a policy. I told the policy run this policy only when the material checkbox checked is true. Then okay, I will run this policy whenever the conditions meet. What to do? Action is before material is mandatory visible equal to true and true. Okay, submit it. Okay, where this reverse true is make more sense. Reverse if false. You know what does it mean? If someone modifies the material check this true, do this. Make it as mandatory. If someone makes as material check this false, then there's unmandatory. So reverse of functionality. Okay. So you go back to your then any existing training schedule, right? The material supplied information is here. You click on, see, a material supplied is mandatory. You click on it, it's false. You did code about hiding. Only said when the material checkbox is true, show material information. But they false. If you by default it is checked. If you do it, then you uncheck it, it doesn't go away. Right? So exactly the operation to be reversed as false. If you uncheck it, it's non-mandatory and it hides it. Displays again. So show hide is one of the okay. And another thing is if the training type equal to IT. Yeah. Now, for example, you wanted to disable just for question say that is a non-IT, the location should be disabled. So in the hide enable hide when the mandatory disabled field depends on the action on a training type. So you click on it, you go configuration and you create a one more UF policy. And the code name like you make disable what did we disable short description location when is disabled for not just some name so that whoever looks at the name they can understand what it is. Write a condition. The condition is the code, right? Training type. If the type is non-IT, do this. So can it save it? What about policy action? That you wanted to apply this one. The C field is we decided the location to be disabled because location reference field is no more valid than non-IT. Your requirement says for IT trainings we have a different locations. Non-IT they have come to your headquarters. So location disable it. So location read only is true and submit. So your location read only option as true. That means making it as disabled as training type equal to non-IT. And if false, if training type is not IT, then basically the location will be enabled. Okay, so we have written this and we updated it. There are 3 policies we have written, and you can order to the policy. This is interview or certification question. The order is a newer policy. Order doesn't exist in client script. In the interview they'll ask you. Even in the certification, this is the question. You have an order. We wanted to have the mandatory fields to be run at first. If all 3 order is 100, system default picks up at runtime, depends on its own. Either can pick this. But if you want to decide the system to pick this first, then this first, this second, this third, then you just add an order to it. That means system execute the mandatory fields first and the non-mandatory fields second this. And if you don't do anything, forget about it. You won't mention when you want the system execute always first this, second this, third this. Otherwise, when randomly execute either one of them, as long as this three are 100, only leave all three as 100 because when there is no dependency on them. If any dependency across the scripts, that is when I put an order. Otherwise, I don't care. When it doesn't matter, because both are three different scripts. They both have any dependency on them. That second script says always first script to be run. There is no such case. So the order is not important. Your policy comes with an order. Client script doesn't come with an order. That's the difference. Training schedule, not this one. My mandates, unload event, it class ID, course title, description as mandatory. Then material is now checked. I clicked on it. Information is being enabled. I try to edit it, doesn't allow me because the material information is enabled. Then I say that bounded bounded printed hardware as a mail. Then the type is ID, location is good. Training HR, location is good. Training equal to non-IT, location is disabled. Finance, location type is enabled. So your field behaving differently depends on this training type because you have written your policy and it to them. Hey, you know what? For on-IT, disable this one. I don't want anything to be there because for IT, location doesn't matter. Should disable them because no location for non-IT. If the T, then it will be enabled. Okay. You guys practice it. The same. If that is IT, location enabled, make it as mandatory for your testing. For non-IT, location disabled. Finance, HR, make it a location mandatory again and enable already there as mandatory. You write another UI action saying the location is mandatory. So it's disabled. It's mandatory anymore. Whenever it is enabled, it is mandatory. Right? This is how the UI policies will control the form level components. What to display and what to make it as mandatory, and you remove it, it's not mandatory anymore and it's hidden. You click on it, the data will be there and it will become mandatory. You remove data, then it will become mandatory. Non-mandatory, disable, right? So these are the activities which happens at the load of F. UI policy only works and the load of a form equal anything by using configurations, script configurations, where you can define what action, what everything. UI policy, there is no scripting, but have 4 actions: load, on delete, on submit, on load, on change, on select. Those are all client scripts which we will discuss in class. But today's class, let's pay attention on the UI policy. It runs an on load at form only, and it follows whatever you define as a criteria, and from then onwards it continue applying the policies of slide, select, enable based on the actions that you are performing. My action here is change HR, my load good. My action here is non-IT, then it is disabled. So the UI runs right away. In the whole scenario, remember, my browser did not submit it. The browser is not submitted. Everything validating in the browser level only. That is what you're doing. It doesn't know that it is a mandatory or not mandatory. It's a class ID. For server, class ID is not mandatory. For some information in ServiceNow database, mail information is not mandatory. But at the level you decided to put a mandatory, making user to put value in it. You are forcing him it can commit an empty value without having any value in it. So here, minus 800 class ID and material equal to hard bound, some short description, and class ID, this is an active, and you update it. That is when data goes to ServiceNow, and ServiceNow thing is that you get some class ID. It doesn't know that the class ID you entered because you are forced to enter on it. It doesn't know, because at this level it is non-mandatory. It just takes the value, it varies the value coming in, it inserts. And user is really a very good guy. He enters all the values without failing. But ServiceNow database doesn't know that you made a mandatory at the UI policy at the browser level that says that upon this when the browser loads. Okay, so this is data posted from the client. You click only when data page refresh loaded, but here page did not refresh. HR thing. You did refresh the page. It on it. Okay. So when you update it, the 800, and you load on it 800, at the load it ran and non-80. You I don't know whether you could see or not, but in your local machine when you see, but it is loading location for non-80 is enabled. But load completed immediately makes it disabled because your UI policy ran. So UI policy runs when the page is loaded, not the page is in the background. When the ServiceNow has this page, and ServiceNow sends this as a non-mandatory. Okay, loaded in UI policies. So that's why I refresh it. You said initially those are not mandatory, and all of a sudden they become. This is see, location non-mandatory, but the moment it loaded, it make it as mandatory. Sorry, it may disable because the non-IT training type is non-IT. I find a policy. The policy says, do this. You're not supposed to do anything, right? So in your client scripts, this is one of the UI policy. Is right. Explain a little bit about client script, and the script is where you write some two to three lines of code. Until you did not write anything, it's all configuring. But when it comes to the client script, you have 4 different activities. Onload, which UI policy has. Remember, UI policy and client script both have this. Onload, you can run the form loaded, and you can make the mandatory, non-mandatory, and disable, show, hide. So whatever you are doing with UI policy can use client script as well. Okay, you prefer the UC for onload things because it's easy to configure and easy to maintain. In fact, you have to write a code. So you prefer write a code when there's a policy that can control. Okay, change. The client script onload, it works as policy onload, but UI policy you just click on, choose, you have selected some values to make it work. But in client script you have to type some code. That's only okay. Then when you compare this is certification, you interview question. What is between client script and UI policy? UI policy, client script. UI policy on onload. Client script runs on onload, on submit, on select, on change. That's called action. The user is performing on your screen. So screen has some actions. You click on submit, which is on submit. Load it. Refresh. You reload form, which is load, right? If you change a value from 800 to 900, to IT, suppose title to titles, you're changing something. The client script capture validates all validations. It gives you options, not only on load, on click of submit, on change of anything, on change a drop down, on change a date, on change of a location, on change of an action. Any actions, right? Other than this, anything else you could perform? No. The only thing that you can perform is at the list view, list, and you have cell edit, double click. So the perform is cell edit. Edit a cell by clicking and double clicking on it and edit, cell, and then you save it. The client script has four options. Either on load, they can change of anything component value. On submit, click submit button, cancel button, close button, save button, delete anything that you're posting the data to the server side, or validate it. You're double clicking on a list view and modifying something. So our actions can be monitored by a client script where you can go write some code, validate the data that user is entering. These are all user validations only. These are nothing to do with the ServiceNow setup or core configurations. This is data validations. You want user not to use expensive submit of in data to ServiceNow and so spends a lot of time and effort, and server responds back saying you entered the wrong data. You go to Gmail and give a wrong username and password. It all the way back to the ServiceNow, and then it comes back and tells your data is wrong. We don't want to have that to happen. We don't want ServiceNow servers to be hit badly unnecessarily. So we need to avoid unnecessary validations. We do it, the client said, before they submit it. So you have in client scripts, both will validate the data by the user not to be submitted to server without having the right values in it. So to validate as much as possible. It's not 100%. We don't know what user center is smart. You have to be extremely smart to capture all user bad data. Then the point user still enough to overwrite your UA policy. He can cheat your UA policy to send some data, and there's no back and validate and then send it back. The service back and validation happens at business rules, which later focus on client script and UA policies. That's what UA policies do, and the client script is 4 different actions. You have to see one action on load. That's it. It only set the form. It only defines the form. It only hides or show form components. It only disable enable. It only make it mandatory. Only sets the form at the load. Client the form at the load. In addition to that, they can validate the data changes that user is doing. They can validate the user submissions on clicking the update button with the wrong data. They can validate the cell edit that user is doing. They can do many more things. Okay, that's the script. We'll talk on client scripts and see examples. For now, let's run the the UI policies. No scripting. There is no code. There is anything to remember. Client script, there is a scripting. You need to remember, like gs.log. I told you object action. In the file maps, you have to remember g_form and g_user. I'll tell you this, but some certain things you have to remember. But your policy, there isn't anything to remember. You define a policy, you define a policy condition, you define a policy action. 3 steps, you're done. Okay. So that about the UI policies. One of the in the client server scripting, the client is to validate the user input before they submit to the server, because server submissions are expensive. Okay. Any questions?
Import and export of groups and roles. Yesterday's clowning, I did not get it.
You right click. You export only this role. Take it as backup. Show matching. You just export this XML role, XML file. Okay, keep this file. This is XML. Keep it wherever you want to save it. You can use role that you added. This user. Then after that clone happened, the clone moved this role. You want to delete it. Oh, sorry, delete it. Okay, delete role doesn't exist anymore. Now clone is everything over. I wanted to bring it back. Right header, the same. Import XML. XML, an XML file, bring and upload. The role is back again. The table, you save the data, export them outside, let the clone happen, then let them delete whatever that happen, come back, check your doesn't exist, import it back. That's it. You can save anything. So what I wanted to show you is when before you delete it, right click on it, check the config ID. It says 19E4. Okay. Now delete it. Deleting is permanently removing from the table. You delete. Are you sure? There is no existence service now. It's gone completely. Now bringing up from your backup that you have in it as a backup, and bringing you from your import set and taken backup before to the clone, bring it back. The wonders is if you use an XML file, you look at the sys, it's the same sys. There is no change. 194. There are no dependency issues. Now, when it is restored, everything just walks down. Don't do an XML export and use a export as a CSV or XML, CSV or PDF or Excel. What is no export is the Excel. The data you exported, and when you import as an Excel, it imports. The problem doesn't bring you the sysid. Then it will add up a new sysid for this one. Then it will break everything because this role is used as a sysid. So that's why it export the backup. Anything you can export, even your training schedule data. You think that it's going to be removed. Then you can just right click on it, and then export as an XML. Then that download it. Then you all the data import it back. The data will come back with the same sysid that every record has. Okay.